What's up, Internet? So back to working on the S10. I know the last time I was working on the S10, I did an update. I was like, hey, we're going to do a full video. We're going to talk about it. But then I drove the S10 and I was having an issue. It was driving and then it was kind of dying. I was like, am I low on fuel since the fuel gauge still isn't quite working right? So I was like, no, it's full of fuel. And then it just acted like it was starving of fuel. So I thought, hey, I put a really inexpensive fuel pump in it, like cheap. I cheaped out. And I was like, okay, so maybe the fuel pump's going bad. It's an external pump. They're more likely to go bad than an internal pump. So after changing out the pump, it fired right up. I'm like, cool, it's fixed. And then it started doing it immediately. I thought it was weird. So I was like, maybe there's computer wiring issue, something like that. But I was like, before I start diving into it, let's diag it, put a fuel pressure gauge on it, a good one, right off the rail. And I was getting no fuel pressure. So I was like, how am I not getting any fuel pressure with a brand new pump? And then I started going back and I kind of figured out what it was. So for anybody that does any work on an LS or does LS swaps, they know what this is. This is a Corvette fuel filter regulator. So how it works is you've got your fuel feed in and it regulates it down inside the filter to 58 PSI, returns it to the tank, and then you just have one line that goes up to the engine. It's a very clean install. Well, I guess these, unless you get a really good one, are known to go bad, especially if you run a higher pressure fuel pump. The pump I was running was a 300 liter per hour, which I guess these, they say pretty much 240 is all they're good at flowing through. Anything over that, they tend to start having issues. And it's got the adapter so I can run, AN line and everything. Well, this seemed to be the issue. I got a new one and the truck fired right up. It's running great until I put a fuel pressure gauge back on the rail. Now, when I put the fuel pressure gauge back on the rail after I put the new filter regulator assembly on there, I was getting 80 PSI. Now, those trucks or Corvettes or pretty much most LS engines with the stock injectors, which I still have in that truck, should be running right around 58 to maybe 60 PSI. 62 is okay, maybe a little bit more depending, but 80 PSI is way too much. So that can cause issues where the injectors aren't firing properly. It could be running really rich. It can add more fuel, which can wash down the cylinder so you're not getting good lubrication. You can get fuel in the oil, all kinds of bad stuff. So I was like, what the heck do I do? Especially since a lot of people say even the new Wix filter, which is generally the better filter, is the Wix one that regulates well, they've had problems where they're kind of hit or miss. So I was like, what do I do? And I was like, well, I'll just get an adjustable fuel pressure regulator. Well, again, I'm cheap. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that. I'm cheap. And a lot of the decent fuel pressure regulators that are adjustable, they're going to be $200-300, and then you're still getting gauges and all this other stuff. So what should I do? And I think back, well, a lot of people say that the truck rails are actually really decent. And for the power levels I'm running, I don't need a high pressure or high flow fuel rail. So why not just run a truck rail? Because they have a fuel regulator right on there and I can change it out. And it just so happens, because I'm also kind of a pack rat, I've got 2 extra truck fuel rails. So today, I'm going to change the front half of the fuel system, where I'm going to go from that pressure regulator, fuel filter assembly, get rid of that, put in a traditional fuel filter. When I say traditional, I'm going to go with the canister one that's got AN fittings and everything for it. I'm going to run that, and then I'll have 2 lines going up to the engine and coming back. So it's going to be really simple. Get rid of the filter regulator assembly, put in a regular fuel filter, and then put in the new rail. And since I'm putting in a new rail, I figured might as well make it decent while I'm getting ready to put it in. So I actually got a brand new AC Delco fuel pressure regulator assembly to go right on the rail, just to make sure that I'm eliminating any issues, since they are used parts and they came off of junk engines and stuff. Okay, so here is the fuel rail that I'm going to go with for the S10. You can see that, so this is a truck style one, and it's got the return. So fuel comes in here, it's the bigger port, it goes up, across, feeds all the injectors, and then it comes back out to the smaller one, and it's regulated right here by the fuel pressure regulator. So I'm sure the fuel pressure regulator is fine. Probably didn't need to change it out, but just, you know, on safety's sake to eliminate headaches, and I'll keep it as a spare. But I did get an actual genuine, as I throw it on the ground, AC Delco one to replace this. It comes with a new screen, the clip, and all that. And then there's actually a hard, or not a hard line, but a molded plastic line that goes up here to a vacuum port that's on the top of the truck manifolds. I have one right here, and a common problem with them is they split right there. Now this one still holds vacuum, it's fine, but again, just to eliminate issues, went online and you can buy these real cheap, just a couple bucks, you know, made in China, but a new molded hose just to prevent any other issues. So I do have some new injector O-rings coming in. I don't think I'm going to change out the ones actually up here on the rail, because these are still very tight, because I have two of these rails. This one seemed to be a little bit newer and better one, so I'm going to get working on that. Okay, so this is one of those moments where comparing the new and old parts is great. Yeah, luckily they're the same, they'll work. The big thing though is looking, when I took the old one out, it came out and the screen and the O-ring stayed in there with it. Not a big deal. And then when I compared it, I noticed that the new one also has a really small O-ring right here, which I didn't see on this one, so I looked in there and saw it. If I had tried to just jam this in, I might have been fighting it for a while, and it wouldn't have worked. So good thing to, yeah, just kind of compare those, get a little bit of oil, lubricate these O-rings as they go in so they don't tear up, and it'll make it a little bit easier going in. I'll get that set up. And kind of clean up the rail in general, and then I just need to put the adapters on. So I got the new pressure regulator put on. It was really easy. Like I said, just kind of lubing up those O-rings a little bit, no difference. Now I'm going to put adapters on. Now they make a couple different versions, all different ones. The ones I've got, these are from a company called Evil Energy. I've actually had good luck. You can find them on Amazon. I've plumbed a couple fuel systems with them, and they've been really good. You can see that there's two different lines in here. You've got your feed and you got your return. The feed line is the bigger one. So they make two different connectors. They make a bigger one and a smaller one. So you can even see on the back part of these cuts, there's a smaller one and a bigger one. These go on real simple. You just kind of go on there, and there's an O-ring in there, but it'll go on like that. This will pop over here. And then you just thread it on. And I just got to get this to seat a little bit further onto there, and it'll thread on just fine. Alrighty, so I'm going to save this fitting off here. This, you know, filter regulator assembly is junk. Wouldn't do anything. This is the old one, not even the new one, that is also junk. To get these out, there's just like a bunch of springs in there. They make all kinds of little tools you can use for that. A simple one that, I mean, even I have here. This is the one that you get at most hardware stores, you know, AutoZone, stuff like that. They're okay, But if you're gonna be doing a lot, or if you're a high-end one, get something like this. These tend to work a lot better. This one's specifically from, I believe, Mac Tools or Astro. But I like these, just the aluminum. It won't gall, it won't mar, but they're also a lot stiffer and they just work better. You know, if you've never seen them work, they go on like that. These go in here, they push down on the spring and it's supposed to collapse it, and the whole part comes out together. And you can see this ridge here, as it goes in, kind of, if the springs are like this, pushes the springs in, and then it grabs the backside to keep it, and then that lip also kind of helps create a seal for the pressure and everything. And then if you look down there, you can see the springs. But like I said, this thing's junk, but you know, these are only, you know, maybe $5 a piece, but having spares, putting them in the bin, it's always good to have. All right, so we are under the truck, and you can see here's the replacement one that I got. And again, this one is not regulating. It's still, the engine's running at like 80 PSI, and you can see what I mean. How you got your feed, and then you get your return, and they come in, it's supposed to regulate, go out, and then you just have the one line going to the engine. And you're like, why is there a 45 there? Well, when I originally built this system, I ran at a straight connection, so I had a 45, which I'm gonna remedy since I need to make a new line that goes up to the engine anyways. I could probably reuse this, but I think I'm just gonna, just get rid of it, build a new line, and have that go up, because that'll be a lot cleaner. It'll go through there and then go up the engine through there. So let me get the old line out and build up some new lines. Okay. So I got the two new lines built. So right up here, you can see I've got some 45s, and you're like, hey, I thought you were gonna get rid of those. Down on the filter side, yes. Up here on the engine, I've got enough room. Instead of running a 90 right off the rails and going over, I'm gonna run a 45. It's a little bit better. You wanna avoid having 90s and big U-bends as much as possible inside your fuel system. Again, this doesn't have enough flow for it, but I might as well. I put some blue tape on this side just so I make sure I know which one the return is. And then on this side, I've got the return line a little bit longer, since I've got that, the filter assembly was, you know, about that big. It kind of took up that space. This will have to be a little bit longer, where this is going to connect to the new filter assembly. And then I had some Velcro on heat wrap that I put over the feed line, and then just kind of keep everything sanitary, use the aluminum clamps on there to keep everything together. So now I got to fish everything down that way, and it is tight. It does run a little close to the exhaust, another reason for the heat wrap, but the old line didn't have any heat wrap on it, and I never had an issue, even with, you know, 100+ degree outside temps. So let me get this fished in there, see where we're at. So, truck's running again. I checked everything for leaks, put everything back together, and on my pressure gauge, reading a nice strong 50, 52 PSI. And then when I rev it, let me kind of put that set there. Fuel pressure actually goes up, and that's because I've got the line connected down to the fuel pressure regulator. So as the manifold vacuum drops, it's not pulling on the back of that spring, so I'm getting more pressure, so that's good. So it's regulating right where it needs to be. That's going to give it better idle quality because it's not pushing so much fuel to it. It's going to probably run a little cleaner as far as it's got fuel returning all the way through. Got all the good connections, everything's set. Okay, so we got the S10 back together. Took a little bit longer. Taking out that filter regulator, I found that I had a female line for the return going back to the tank, then a female line connection coming from the rail up there, and whatever society says, the female doesn't make the connection as far as that goes. So I kind of had to cobble together this really horrible looking male to male connector with a rubber hose. It's bad. I have a 6AN male to male union connection coming. Just wasn't here, but I wanted to get the truck together and at least running and started. You saw it running, everything's good. Took it out for a test drive, still rips, still sounds great. But then the other problem I had is when I first started it back up, it didn't want to start. And I'm like, why, what's going on? I was troubleshooting, I was getting pressure to the rail. I'm like, I checked all my plugs. Okay, maybe did I unplug something? Everything was good. I'm like, well, maybe the injectors on that other rail were bad. I knew the injectors on my first rail were fine, so I'll swap them over. So I took the rail back off, and when I was pulling those injectors out, there was, I don't know if it was bad gas or gas and oil or something mixed together in that rail, but it was not just pure gasoline. And I think that was my issue. So I took all the injectors off, I cleaned that out, I ran a can of brake clean through it with all the injectors off, blew air through it, cleaned it out completely, and then I put in my known good injectors into that rail, sealed everything back up. She fired up and she runs great. Does it run better with having that? I'd say it starts better and idles better. Every once in a while it'd have this kind of weird dip in idle. It was probably just because there's too much pressure going to those injectors. It's really hard to say that if it's any faster at wide open throttle. Probably with that higher pressure it was better, but not enough for me to tell. Again, with its standard truck intake, it's got shorty headers and a cam and a basic tune. So running those stock, 31-pound injectors from a truck, the stock pressure is fine. Don't need anything else. So it's all good to go. Probably the next thing I need to do is drive it and take you guys along and kind of show you what it's all about. Until next time, go build something for your car. One more rev because it's awesome.